Hi, everyone. As Priya said, my name is Duffey Cubilette. My pronouns are she, her. I am a senior consultant at Capacity Interactive, specializing in both website analytics and digital advertising. I am a white woman with blonde hair and blue glasses, and I am wearing a black and white gold floral dress and studded booties. And this is me dressed up as Molly Boz, a Bon Appetit YouTube test kitchen contributor for Halloween. Laughs, so I think there are some Bon Appetit YouTube fans in the audience. For those of you who don't know, Bon Appetit had a real moment in 2019, 2020. This is actually Molly Boz. In case you don't know, similarities, the apron, the flaky salt. And this awful photo taken by my husband. It was also Halloween, so zombie Molly. Those dark circles are not natural. Only a really nerdy foodie is going to dress up as this obscure YouTube personality for Halloween, and that is, my personality in a nutshell, a nerd and a foodie. I'm telling you this because I think there is a nerdy, fun parallel between cooking and website analytics. Both can be a little bit technical, both can take time to feel proficient in, and both can take time to incorporate into your day-to-day. But in the end, they're both so worth it because it brings people together, either around a delicious meal or around data-driven decision-making. Now that we are in this moment of GA4, we have an opportunity to become better cooks with our website data, to create delicious digital meals that sustain our audience and our organization. This isn't about a particular recipe. When you go into the kitchen, you have different ingredients, you have different tools and spices, you have different tastes. And when it comes to our website analytics, we're in a similar situation. We might be collecting different data, we might have different budgets and resources at our organization, and we might have different goals. So rather than saying, this is what you need to go out and do with your website data, I want to give you a framework or a process to think about how to get started in a way that makes sense for your organization. By giving you a few examples of data made actionable, I want to build your palette for website analytics, build your appetite for understanding your website and using that to create great digital meals for your organization and your audience. It's a pretty uncontroversial statement to say that the website is important. We heard it already today from Colleen. But we also know that many organizations can't answer basic questions about how their website is performing. Fewer still will iterate or make incremental improvements to a website experience beyond that 3 to 5 year redesign. So I'm going to give you, before we get into some specifics of GA4, 3 cases or 3 arguments you can bring back to your organization of how that data can be valuable and why that process is valuable. The first is all about the money. There is a lot of money going into and coming out of the website. We are spending a lot on creating that digital experience in the first place. We are spending a lot on advertising that is directing people to go to the website to learn more. And in this day and age, most of our revenue comes through the website. Most transactions happen online. And so understanding those mechanisms is critically important. Good user experiences can raise your website's conversion rate by 200%. Now that would be huge, but even think about 5%, 10%. Incremental improvements over time can represent tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Website data helps us spend more efficiently on our advertising and on iterative improvements to the website that create better user experiences that drive higher conversion rates and directly feed that bottom line. But as a nonprofit, we don't just have a bottom line, we have a double bottom line. We are trying to cultivate audiences for the arts. We create amazing meals in the theater, in galleries, but the website is the amuse-bouche. It is the first taste that your audiences will get of your organization and what you are offering. And 88% of users are less likely to return to a website after a bad user experience. And I think it can be hard to get ourselves out of the mega fan shoes, if you will. We are all massive arts fans, and we'll put up with a lot to get those tickets. Are there any Taylor Swift fans in the audience? Okay, so you put up with a lot to get those tickets, right? And you are willing to do that. But think about those people who are less bought into that experience, who are less regular attendees of the arts. If we care about building audiences for the arts, cultivating new audiences for the arts, the website is a critical piece of that. We can look to data to make that experience better for folks. Test ways to reduce friction. The third way that your website data can be valuable is more selfish. It's about being efficient. Your data can help inform what projects will really make a difference, what's worth your time and investment. And importantly, almost, I think more importantly, it can help you make a case for something that's not moving the needle, that's not worth your time. So understanding your website is critical to your success as an organization and an arts administrator. It helps you work smarter, cultivate those audiences, and drive revenue. One final point on this, we often think about website analytics, and it's technical, it's about the website, it's digital, it's all of these things that can be kind of niche. But if you think about it, the website is the best source of real-time information about how your audiences are interacting with your organization. It's not just website data, it's audience data. And that's valuable for every single person at your organization, not just the marketing teams, not just the web teams. So, Google Analytics 4. We've now moved to this new system, and that's not been without its friction. I think it has inspired many people to be like, are there other tools we should be using instead? And the truth is that Google Analytics is still the best tool we have for this analysis and for our industry, for a few reasons. The first is what you get for free is extremely powerful. It's also highly customizable to the particulars of your website, and it integrates with all of the other Google marketing tools, and so can be used for segmentation, for targeting, and for measurement. But the most meaningful reason why Google Analytics is the best tool for our industry is because it is so widely used. It is used by millions of websites, and what that means is that there is a vast community of resources around this tool that can help you get better at utilizing it fully. This forum is a perfect example of that. It also means that as people come into your organization, they're more likely to be familiar with this tool, less training and startup. We did a bit of a survey in the last couple of months, seeing where our industry was in adopting GA4. And about 3/4 have some kind of implementation in place, but the vast majority feel that they aren't either using it yet or that they are still learning. And that's fine. I share this with you to put you at ease. You are not behind. There is an opportunity now, though, to really let it rip with your website analytics. We know that many organizations didn't leverage this data fully before, but we know the website is such a powerful way we interact with our audiences. So now is a great moment to start using that data to drive conversions more effectively and build stronger connections with your audience. That is what it's about. That's what's next with your GA4 process. So I'm going to show you a few ways that data can inform the conversations you're having at your organization, even conversations that may not be outright about the website itself. But those insights don't come from logging into GA4 and looking at those reports. They come from asking questions. All analysis starts with a question. And there are so many questions you can answer using your GA4 data. How are people getting to the website? What type of content are they seeing? Are they scrolling? Are they using a sharing functionality? And this slide is not about all of the questions that are actually written here, although you're welcome to take a picture if you like. It's more to demonstrate that breadth. The key is not just asking questions, it's asking smart questions. You can think of this as the salt, fat, acid, heat of website analytics. So a smart question, SMART being an acronym, first you need to get specific. You can start very broad. How is my website performing? But we want to narrow that much further. It obviously needs to be something that is measurable. If it is not measured right now, you can fix that. But the next two, the A and the R, I think are the most important part of this framework. You want it to be something that is actionable. And so you need to think about what you're going to do with the information you find from the get-go. And finally, Troy talked about listening, right? A smart question in any analysis you do should be relevant to the goals and your priorities at your organization. And finally, for any kind of analysis, it helps to make it time-bound to give it some of those constraints. There are smart questions you can ask of your website data that are going to be relevant for all different people at your organization. Not just those web and marketing teams, but certainly them too. For those web teams, how are people using the functionality you built? What happens when somebody clicks through a campaign for our marketing folks? But for programming, what programming is resonating in real time, even before tickets go on sale? For fundraising, how are people using your online giving tools? What does that tell you about how people are exploring your mission and those fundraising options? So let's look at some examples of these kinds of inquiries, the data that we have available in GA4 and what we might do with it. So starting off, an example for our marketing teams. I know that's a lot of people in the audience. We have information in GA4 about how our campaigns are performing, particularly our email campaigns. In GA4, we can go to the reports into this traffic acquisition section, and we can see how people are clicking through our various email campaigns. There are various email campaigns in our session campaign dimension, and we can see whether those people are then buying, the revenue associated with that, and the conversion rates. This report is giving 100% of the credit to that purchase, for that purchase, to the email campaign the person clicked through. But we also know that emails and many other marketing campaigns can have a more lasting impact. What if somebody clicks through that email, they browse, they're not ready to buy, they come back a couple of days later through an organic search listing, and then they purchase? I would want to give that email some credit as well. Google's data-driven attribution model allows us to do that, and that data lives in a slightly different report. But here you can see that this email, after clicking, there were 139 purchases. Over in the data-driven attribution report, which lives under engagement, you can see there were 149 purchases attributed to this email, so 10 more that were influenced by this email. And that's way more insight into this email performance than you would get from your email service provider. It shows you how people are actually behaving on the website. Is that email doing what you want it to do, assuming it's a sales email? So what might we do with that kind of information? If you're running some kind of segmentation, if you find that segment A is more likely to purchase than segment B, maybe we need to adjust the messaging for that second group. If we find that we're testing two different versions of our messaging, and if we find that second version is more likely to inspire those repeat visits, maybe that's something we need to build on. We want to build on that angle. And so you can see the data that we have in Google Analytics helps us make decisions about our email targeting, our messaging, our content, in order to drive better conversion rates. Let's look at a case for our fundraising folks. You might be curious, perhaps you've launched some new membership benefits. Are people exploring those pages? Do people know that you've changed those offerings? In GA4, you can see how many people are visiting your website overall, and you can see how many people are visiting your support section. A new feature of GA4 is also that you can understand some additional types of behavior that people are taking on your website. Without any additional customization, you can see if people are downloading files or watching videos and a few other kinds of interactions. But this could be relevant if you have published a brochure on those membership benefits on your website. If you made a video about the experience of membership for people. Are people seeing those things? Are they interacting with them? So if we see that users aren't getting to those membership pages, maybe we need to test including that content elsewhere on the website that is more popular. If we see not many people are interacting with those fundraising stories, the brochure, the video, maybe it's because of where it's placed on the page. Maybe it's because it's just not the right medium for conveying that information. So we have this data in GA4 that can help inform website design and our content modules, content hierarchy, and even the creative that we are developing. So you can start to see how the flavors are there. And by flavors, I mean data that can help you make informed decisions. Just a couple more examples. For programming folks, you might be interested in how your seasons are trending even before tickets go on sale. In GA4, you can go back to that Pages and Screens report and see what event detail pages are getting traffic. Once tickets are on sale, GA4 also can give us the ability to see not just what people are buying, but how often they're adding that product to the cart or viewing the detail page. And so we can understand that funnel leading up to the event. So if you see that maybe a certain event isn't getting as much traffic, not only do you know what's going to need more support from a marketing perspective, it could also inform future planning, revenue goals, all of those kinds of messaging needs. If you find a certain event has a higher than average abandonment rate, maybe people aren't adding that product to the cart as often as they would normally. Maybe that's because of availability. Maybe it's because of pricing. Maybe it's because of how we're talking about that particular program. And you can test that. One final example geared towards our education teams. You might be interested if recent education program page visitors differ from your typical show visitors. You can create custom segments in GA4. Again, not just purchase behavior, but the people who are visiting those pages. How do they overlap? Or do they? You can also create custom tracking to understand how people are searching for courses. For this client, we built out this course search functionality so they can see not just what people are buying, but where's the intent? So if we see that the most popular event, the most popular type of program has limited availability, maybe that means we need to do more of that. Maybe it means that we should be sharing with those folks something else that might be similar, something else they might like. If we see those education audiences don't really overlap with our show audiences, obviously that informs our marketing strategy. So you can start to see how, with this data we have in GA4, we can make decisions all across our functions. I want to acknowledge a few prerequisites for these analyses that I've shown here. First, for campaign tracking, it is absolutely critical that you are using UTM trackable links in your campaigns in order to see that behavior in GA4. If you have any questions about UTM tracking, campaign tracking in GA4, come find me. Happy to nerd out about that. Cross-domain tracking is also critical to understand that purchase path if it spans domains. If you go from laphil.com to laphilstore.com, there's an additional setting you need to adjust in GA4 to be able to understand that behavior seamlessly. E-commerce tracking is also critically important to be able to understand those campaigns, right? And don't forget about any secondary or tertiary kinds of transaction paths that you might have, a store, a donation form that might be separate from your primary ticketing path. The e-commerce progression that I showed from viewing a detail page to adding to cart and purchasing, sometimes that can require some additional customization. And finally, of course, there may be some behavior on your website that is unique, but also important to understand, and that can require additional custom tracking as well. But that's the idea, right? That is how you start with questions. Look to the data and then make informed decisions. By asking smart questions of your GA4 data, you can make data-informed decisions that ensure your digital experiences support your mission and your organization. But that process can still feel really overwhelming, right? You're collecting some data. Which side am I on? That way. Collecting some data. You want to get to those meaningful insights, but that middle ground is very fuzzy. I'm going to give you a few steps, a process that we go through with all of our clients at CI that can help set you up for success, that can give you the infrastructure to support this process of asking questions and finding some actionable insights. The first step is a status check. Do you have a GA4 property? Is it collecting data? Do you have e-commerce data in there? If you answered no to any of these questions, that's a great place to start. You then want to define success. What are you trying to accomplish with your website? What metrics can support whether or not you are doing that? Is there any critical behavior that is not tracked by default that will help you understand that success? Once you've defined success, you've identified those areas that you might want to track in addition to what's tracked by default. You can make some customizations to your setup. That might look like for SF MoMA on their website, they have a number of different features that would not be tracked out of the box, but that they really wanted to understand in order to have a better grasp of user behavior. So you can see that collapsed menu at the top. Are people using that? Are people expanding those menu options in order to explore further? They also have a few different ways to interact with this artwork. You can expand to view a bigger blow-up of that artwork, and they have an audio guide. Are people enjoying that functionality? Are people using that functionality? is it contributing to the overall experience on the site? So you can build custom tracking that will enable you to see whether any of those behaviors are happening. Once you have that robust data set, you can start to build process and automation on top of it. What do you need to look at every day? Or what do you need to look at every week? And you can make dashboards that help make that process easier. For our clients at CI, we do this using Google's visualization tool, Looker Studio. We build these dashboards that consolidate a lot of the key metrics, make it branded, make it easily shareable across the organization. Now, I love a dashboard. I love these dashboards. We put a lot into making beautiful visuals. But even that can be hard to look at and find something insightful. I said in a CI event once that data visualization was my jam. And ever since then, my mom has sent me preserves that say data visualization on them, which I love. So don't get me wrong, I love a dashboard. But a dashboard is really valuable in its ability to inspire questions. Even this dashboard, we see this kind of dip in page views that happened here. Why? Why did that happen? Maybe it was expected, maybe it wasn't. What changed? That's where a dashboard can be really helpful. Dashboards are a shortcut to insights and action. They are not insights in and of themselves. So once you have those steps in place, that is where you can start building those analytics processes and asking smart questions. Every website is different. Every organization's priorities and budgets and capabilities are different, and so the data you find meaningful is going to be different. Once you have this infrastructure in place, you have robust data, you have defined goals, you have dashboards, it's much easier to surface, analyze, and act. And that is how website analytics can be executed beautifully. I'll leave you with just a few takeaways. Website analytics is about understanding your audience, not just your website. You have data that can inform all kinds of decisions you are making across your organization. Take this moment of transitioning to GA4 as an opportunity to become a better cook with your website data. Use that data to invest your time and resources strategically in order to create great digital experiences that cultivate your audience and support your organization. I hope that has given you some food for thought. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Haley from the Kennedy Center. So I work on very specific genres, and I don't have full access to our website. We have a web team that does all of that. So I'm wondering if I could set up my own little dashboard in GA4 for the genres that I work on and the pages that I oversee.
I think I did that for you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm happy to share it with you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So Looker Studio is a great way to create filtered views of your data as well. Coming in from many organizations, right? You have different departments, you have different people working on different programs. Going into GA4 can be very overwhelming. So one of the real benefits of something like Looker Studio is that we can create our own pre-filtered views of our data sets. So it can be really powerful to share across your organization in that way. So send me an email.
All right,
I'll get
be
that
in touch.
for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. There was another over here. Yeah. And there.
Hey.
Hi.
Okay, so when it comes to UTM URLs, I have a question. So our organization has a few different departments that specifically, like for social media, they're set up with different schedulers. And so I am wondering if there is some kind of like third-party UTM that everyone should be using in order for the data to aggregate most usefully, or if by virtue of just having a UTM for the same URL, even if it's different, that will automatically aggregate in GA.
It probably depends on your system. So I would lean into automatic tracking functionality wherever humanly possible, because of course creating all of those links manually is really cumbersome. Most email platforms and other social posting tools will have some kind of like create trackable links in GA4 or checkbox that will automatically create those trackable links for you. Typically, that then standardizes the source and the medium, and then the campaign will be whatever the name of the campaign is that you gave it. So that's a great way to create consistency in those UTM parameters, and to also not make it so burdensome to have to make all of those links manually. It is worth doing an audit in GA4, going in to see, okay, what are my sources, what are my mediums, how are they being categorized? Google will automatically assign a channel group based off of those parameters or based off of the referral URL. So sometimes we can see some weird stuff with things getting categorized in weird ways. So you can go into GA4 and check that. So those would be my two suggestions. Check what's coming into GA4 right now and use those built-in tracker functionalities wherever possible.
Thanks.
Yeah. There was a question here.
Hi, I'm Katie. Do you have any recommendations for super user-friendly training for GA4?
That is a great question. So Google does have a series of videos on GA4 basics, so that's always a great place to start. What's challenging, or what can be challenging about them, is they aren't very use case specific. They're pretty broad e-commerce. So, but that can give you a really good foundation. A few other sources for things. There are a few people that I follow and podcasts. There's a podcast called MeasurePod, which gets has a good series on GA4 from last year when before official transition. So that can be a good thing to reference as well. That'll give you some basics of the functionality too.
Hi, I'm Natasha from Trinity Rep in Providence, Rhode Island. Question about what you've seen so far as greatest strengths of this new version of GA4 versus greatest opportunities. And then, I guess it's a three-part. And then one of the features that they've had that has sort of been integrated or just elevated from past versions for users like us. Yeah.
I think the strength of GA4 is its flexibility. So for those, this might get a little in the weeds, but GA4 is structured around an event-based data model, so every kind of behavior is an event. And with each event, you can send up to, I think it's 50 different parameters that give you additional information about that event. So what does that look like? If I'm thinking about an event called file download, my parameters might be the file name, the file extension, the page that I was on, the section of the website I was on, so on and so forth. So, and you can really structure that however you want. So there's a lot of flexibility there to be collecting really granular data. Opportunities, to the question earlier, I think Google's documentation leaves a lot to be desired. I think that there are some key functionalities that we were used to in universal analytics that are harder to find. You go into a given report, and there are only a few different dimensions available, and you're like, how do I see this other thing? It can be a little bit clunky in that way. My favorite thing about GA4 right now, or my favorite functionality, is the funnel exploration. So in universal analytics, funnels were really cumbersome to create, and you had to do it in advance. and then let it run for a while before you could see any of that data. In GA4, there's a section called Explorations, which is like free-form kind of explore, and they have a few templates, one of which is a funnel template. And so you can define your funnel steps, you can change them around, and you can play with that data looking at that funnel in real time, which is really cool, in my opinion. Other questions? A couple of things that are hot topics when it comes to GA4. One that has come up a lot is data retention. So, we're collecting all of our data in Universal Analytics. Now we are in GA4. Those are two different systems, and Google is only guaranteeing us access to that historical data in Universal through July of next year. So what happens with all of that historical data? And that's something that we all need to be aware of, because if you don't export it and store it somewhere, you're gonna lose it. There are a few different ways that you can approach exporting that data. Most of them are fairly manual, but you can use an API, you can export individual reports, but that is something that we'll need to consider now that we have officially stopped collecting data in Universal. How are we going to store that historical data? Pause for any other questions. I also want to highlight, we posted 2 blog posts recently that one is about comparing Universal and GA4 and a few metric differences between the two. And there's also a separate one on navigating GA4 that goes through some of the key functionality differences. So if you're getting into the weeds, that is a great place to start as well.
Question.
Yeah.
Regarding historical data, how much do you think is actually worthwhile to hold on to since things have changed so much?
Great question. Probably it depends. I would say that the world is also just such a different place. Like the internet is a different place than it was in 2012. Like some people have Universal Analytics properties going back more than a decade. Probably not necessary to hold on to that. I would say maybe 5 years. Get a little bit pre-pandemic, get the pandemic, because it's interesting and recent, and then get some post-pandemic, and that's probably gonna have you covered. And generally, I think, we're interested in high-level trends. Visits over time, revenue over time, those kinds of things will probably get you most of what you need. It also depends a little bit on when you set up your GA4 property and how much data lives there. I'll say, so I said no recipes, but another common question is, okay, if I had to start somewhere, where would you start? I always think it's good to start at the beginning. So what are your most popular landing pages? Maybe start there. How are people entering that website, your website? What is that experience like? I think that's a really good first analysis. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of the conference.